mercadolibre just announced their earnings and the stock is down by about 9%. It's currently trading at about $1,925. In this video, I'm going to talk about whether it's a buy, sell, or a hold. In doing so, I'm going to cover its business model briefly. Then I'm going to cover its recent financials and I'll finally do a valuation. Let's look at its business model briefly. As you can see on the screen, mercadolibre has e-commerce business predominantly, and it also covers the advertisements. Then we have Mercado Shops, that's their SaaS business for small stores. There is Mercado Pago, that's the fintech wing. And then they also have Mercado Envios, which is the logistics solution. They also have Mercado Credito, that's not shown here. They deal with loans. Let's quickly look at its recent financials to understand why the stock is falling. As you can see on the screen, the gross margin in the most recent quarter is 46%. It's down from 53% a year ago. So that's about 7% drop in gross margin. And there could be multiple reasons for this. I could think of two reasons. One is there could be competition catching up and they have to reduce prices. Or the other reason could be that since they're a conglomerate of businesses, the revenue segments that have low gross margin might be growing faster than the businesses with high gross margin. And that's driving the overall gross margin down, right? In any case, it's a negative. And that's what Wall Street is worried about. Falling margins, and when your gross margin falls, it is highly likely that you are operating and also net margin will fall. The net margin, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, 7.5% in the most recent quarter compared to 9.2% a year ago. So obviously people are worried about falling gross margins, and that has affected the stock. Let's quickly look at their balance sheet. As you can see on the screen, they are showing the total debt as $6.3 billion and the net debt as $1.9 billion. So this is a healthy balance sheet. There isn't anything negative here. And looking at the growth rate, in the most recent quarter, they grew their revenue by 35% year over year when we consider the revenue growth in US dollars, which is what we care. As you can see on the screen, for the past few years, they have been growing their revenue consistently, very quick. In the trailing 12 months, they grew their revenue by 37.27%, which is phenomenal. But we do know that as the company gets bigger and bigger, this has to fall, right? The growth rate has to fall because growing from 10 billion to 20 billion is 100% gain, right? But growing from 20 to 40 is another 100. So that's much harder to do than growing from 10 to 20. So in my opinion, as the company gets bigger and bigger, this growth has to slow down. And that's what I'm going to consider in the valuation. Let's move on to the valuation to take a decision of whether to buy, sell, or hold this stock. Before I do that, I want to clarify that this is not financial advice. I'm not qualified to give financial advice. I'm simply a person who is recording their thoughts about meli. I'm going to show two cases, one with reasonable assumptions and the other one with great execution. In the reasonable assumptions case, as you can see on the screen, in 2023, they made about $14.4 billion of revenue. I'm estimating a growth rate of 25% year over year. Again, remember, as the company grows bigger and bigger, it's hard for them to grow. Even this 25% growth will result in $44 billion of revenue by 2028, from 14 to 44. So that's the reasonable assumptions case. And the net profit margin currently is at 7.5%, right? But I'm assuming that as they get scale, they can get to 10% net profit margin from 7.5%. And the e-commerce businesses, even in the US, make single-digit net profit margins because of the type of the business. It's very hard to make double-digit net profit margins. So I'm assuming 10% net profit margin with which they can make close to $4.4 billion of net income in 2028. And I'm assigning a multiple of 30, which I think is rich, but I'm assigning it because this company has moat. With that, the market cap will be about $132 billion in 2028. Currently, they have close to 51 million outstanding shares. I'm assuming 2% dilution, which is they'll have 56 million outstanding shares by 2028. When I divide the market cap of $132 billion with 56 million outstanding shares, I get a stock price of $2,341. Currently, they're at $1,935, right? That's about 21% gain, which is not good at all. For us to get a double, meli has to fall to 1171, which may not happen, right? So in the reasonable assumptions case, I'm looking at a 21% gain, which is bad. Let's now move on to the great execution case, in which I'm assuming 30% growth rate year over year, which can get them $53 billion of revenue by 2028. From 14 billion to 53 billion, right? That's actually hard to do. but with great execution, they probably can get there. I'm keeping the net margin, number of outstanding shares the same, but I'm assigning a higher multiple, 35. It used to be 30 before. With that, they will have $3,323 stock price in 2028. Currently, they're at $1,935, so that gives about 72% gain, which is very attractive. But this is great execution. In conclusion, I'm looking at a 21% gain in the reasonable assumptions case and 72% gain in the great execution case. For my personal journey, I look at the reasonable assumptions case in which I needed 2x. So unless this company gets to 1100, I cannot touch this stock. Of course, you may have a different opinion. Please assume your own growth rate, your own multiple, and your own net profit margin to come up with your own valuation. Also, one thing I want to mention is that some people may consider free cash flow. Free cash flow is much higher for this company, but I don't think that's a good metric to use for this particular business, as it's not a true depiction of the profitability. So that's it for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.